Today, we're going to be talking about if the Chicago Bulls should be looking to make a trade this season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about if the Chicago Bulls should be looking to make a trade this season. And so I think that the Chicago Bulls should certainly be looking to evaluate this team. I think that a trade should be on the table. I'm not necessarily saying that they need to make a trade this season. And so I think that if the phone rings, AK in the front office, they do pick it up. They listen to what it is that's being offered, but they should not necessarily just jump into a trade just because it's a star player and it will be a big splash and everything else. Like, I think that you have to consider a lot of things when you're making a trade, especially with what's going on with this team right now, because I do like the direction of this team. I do think that the plan that AK has for this team is really starting to make sense. And you can tell that this team continues to grow each game, even in the losses as well. And so I do like that. This is a very connected team and they're headed in the right direction. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this team doesn't need to make adjustments. They are going to have to make some more adjustments. It's one thing to get into the playoffs, but it's another thing to win in the playoffs, and not only win in the playoffs, but get out of the playoffs and get to the NBA championship, and then also to win it. Like, you are going to you need to have your team develop in a certain way. You also need to have certain pieces in place as well. And so I think that this team will need to make some adjustments, but I think that you're not necessarily at a point where you need to rush into things. And so, when you're talking about making trades, I think that really what we're talking about is like some of these star players that would be like a huge splash and maybe they turn around the team, just like that. And so, I'm thinking of players like Ja Morant. I'm thinking of like a Zion. I'm thinking of Giannis. I'm thinking of Anthony Davis. These are players that have been linked to the Chicago Bulls before, and rumors and stuff like that. And so just really using, these star players as examples and just really talking about if the Bulls should be looking to make a trade for a star player. And so, I think that they certainly shouldn't be making a trade for a star player just because they can make the trade for the star player and their name. Because I think that you have to think about, does this star player really mesh with what you have? All right. And so, right now we're seeing a team that is very connected. This is a team that is very selfless. If the starters aren't playing well, the bench comes in, they're playing very well, and then the starters are able to come in. There's no ego there. And so, this star, you need them to come in and you need them to do superstar type of things, especially in the clutch and everything else. But you also need a star that is going to go ahead and mesh really with what you're trying to build with this team and the foundation and everything else. Because if you don't have that player that really meshes with that style of play that you have and everything else, that could be disastrous. And so, just looking at a guy like Zion, he's terrific when it comes to, getting into transition and just attacking the paint and everything else. But can he also, be a player that is going to thrive when the ball is out of his hands or when the defense goes ahead and then they start to load up on him and make him shoot jumpers and things like that? Like, can you still be impactful there? And also, too, the same could be said about a guy like Ja Morant. He's terrific as far as getting downhill, but you have a lot of guards on this team. And, just with the playing style and everything else, will you be able to make plays off ball and stuff like that? And so, again, it really all has to mesh. And so you don't want to just be trading for star players just because. The next thing that I would think about, too, if I'm in the front office there, is just really, would you want to trade for a player if they're not necessarily available? And so, starting with a guy like Zion, he's been linked in the rumors and stuff like that to the Bulls, over the summer and everything else. And so with Zion, look, he's terrific as far as scoring the basketball. He's averaging 24.6 points per game for his career. And he's also getting 6.6 rebounds and 4.3 assists as well. And so he is certainly putting up numbers. The problem is he just hasn't been available on the floor. 2019, 2020, 24 games there. Then In 22-23, only 29 games, 24-25, 30 games. And then he's missed some time this season with 6 games, or he's only played in 6 games, this season. And so he's just now coming back. And so you have to ask yourself, would you be wanting to trade for a player that essentially may not be on the court for you? Because for me, if you're going to go and trade some of your draft assets, you're going to trade some of these younger pieces that are really starting to come together, I need to have a player that's going to be available. The same thing can be said here about Anthony Davis. He has struggled, as far as staying on the court. Yes, he is an absolute terror when he's on the court, and he's like very versatile. Like out of all the players that I've just mentioned here, this is a guy that can knock down the outside shot. He can hit a mid-range. He can go to the post. He can give you a little bit of defensive presence and everything else. And plus, he's an NBA champion. And so you do get that experience, which I've talked about before. But the issue is just he has not been available. He's only played in 5 games this season. He played in 9 games with the Mavs a season ago there. And then when you look at just what he did with the Lakers in 22-23, 56 games, 21-22, 40 there. And then the 2021 season, 36. And so, it just goes on and on with the amount of time that Anthony Davis has missed here. And so if you're going to trade for pieces and count on these guys, you need them to be on the floor. And so that's another thing that I would say the Bulls should just really kind of pump the brakes on if you're going out there to go and get a star player. And then next, from a financial standpoint, that's where it really starts to get interesting for me. It's just as far as thinking about these star players, because, right now you are in a good situation where you just got Josh Giddey, I think, on a very good contract, because he is certainly, I think, going to show that he's going to outplay this contract that he's just signed with the Chicago Bulls. You also have a ton of cap space right now. And granted, we're still not counting, what it's going to be here with Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, but still, even with them returning back, if you decide to go that direction, which, by the way, I'm in the camp of keeping both of those players, you're still going to have a lot of flexibility with your cap and just really what you want to do. And so is it worth going out there and getting a player like an Anthony Davis, or maybe getting a guy like a Giannis or somebody like that, and you're taking on that type of contract? And really, it becomes tough for your franchise, because with the way that the CBA is, with the way that these aprons are and stuff like that, like, I think that you really want to be in a situation where you can pivot whenever you need to. I don't think that you want to get locked into a certain situation or a contract where you've given off your younger talent, and then you're locked into a contract that really could hurt you as far as with the way that the CBA and the salary caps are and stuff like that. You don't want to get yourself into those type of situations. And the Bulls, have done a great job as far as getting out of that. I don't think that the Bulls are in a position where they want to get back into something like that. And another thing too, that I would add, as far as just going out and making a trade, and one of the things that AK really has to think about is that it might make more sense to go ahead and keep your draft selection and see if you can add to your younger core, because there's the potential that one of these players could turn into the superstar that you need. 2, you could possibly go out and draft a player that becomes a superstar for you, and it's going to be a lot more cost efficient for you because they're coming in on a rookie scale type of contract. And so that's something that you have to think about when you're talking about, your draft picks and just your financial flexibility and everything else. And so, I'm just not in the camp of going out, trading for a player just because they need to mesh with the team. I'm not going out there to get a player that's not available, and I'm not interested in going out there and giving up draft assets for a player that could maybe hurt me as far as my CBA and my apron and stuff like that, or the apron that it is with the salary cap, not the CBA, the apron with the salary cap and stuff like that. Like, I'm not interested in that. But I do think that some of the moves that the Bulls should possibly consider, if they are going to make a move, would be for like a player like, maybe you're wanting to add a guy like a Daniel Gafford. Like, I think that that's something that is a cost-efficient move. What does it cost you? I think it's going to be far lesser than going out and maybe getting a Giannis, a Zion, and everything else. And then also, too, another player that I might be interested in is maybe, a Mark Williams, even though he struggled with injury, or a Nick Richards, like a player like that. And then maybe Nick Claxton is a player that I would be interested in with the Brooklyn Nets. Walker Kessler, I know he's injured right now, but certainly I think he's a player that really fits with what you're trying to do as well. And I think that you don't necessarily have to give up as much. And then maybe a couple of just, if you're talking about two-way players, maybe if the Pelicans are looking to sell at this point, maybe a Trey Murphy III, maybe it's a Herb Jones, like players like that can give you that two-way punch that, can help you still push this roster in the right direction while you're still going out there and developing your star, or maybe going out and drafting a star. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that the Chicago Bulls should go ahead and maybe trade off one of their players here? Because again, you do have Ayo, you do have Kobe White, who are on expiring deals, and so they very much could be traded. I'm not into that camp. I'm going to say that again. I would like to keep both players, but this is an option that the Chicago Bulls have. You have expiring contracts in Vooch, you have an expiring contract in Kevin Huerter, in Zach Collins. And so those are players that could certainly be moved. You do have control of your draft capital. And so that's something that the Bulls can do here. I'm just not sure that the Bulls want to go out, speed up the timeline just to go out and get a star that doesn't necessarily fit what you're trying to do. Again, just going off just a couple players that have been rumored to possibly be on the move, like a Ja, a Zion, maybe a Giannis if he gets frustrated enough there in Milwaukee, and Anthony Davis, depending on what the direction is for the Dallas Mavericks. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. What should the Chicago Bulls do as they continue on this season? Really, I think moving in the right direction, as they currently are over 500. This Bulls team trending in the right direction. And so we'll see what they do this season. And so anyway, you guys let me know. And as we always say, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.